Good morning, and welcome back to yet another episode of Making a Video Game. Last time, we got some interactions working, which is pretty exciting. So if I just jump into the project really quick, and we go ahead and we run the program for the first time, it'll actually do something. If you click that, it changes to what we're calling the game screen. If you press space, this number increments and brings you back to here. It's all very simple. Not very fun yet, but interactive. That's the important thing. So if we go and grab the README really quick, I did have a bit of a think after I'd down tools last time. There's probably a bit of tidying to do at some point. I've just been kind of dropping stuff wherever was easiest for now. So I think we're going to want to do a bit of refactoring. I'm kind of keen to get onto actually writing Tetris though, so I think what I might do is continue with this original couple steps. We'll, I don't know, make our menu look slightly less ridiculous, and then we'll start actually writing the actual game that we actually want to play. And you know, a lot of this kind of organization problems, but you can't really have an organization problem until you've got a program, right? So let's get a program and then tidy it up. So let me just check I've got nothing uncommitted. Nice. Try and remember where our logic we care about is going to live. So the way we're doing this is inside of our main loop in Nya. Get rid of these comments. That's me just explaining something myself as much as anything else. So inside of our main loop, we're up here. We set up our renderer. We set up our game state. Then inside our main loop, we poll events. Our callbacks are all set up to flush those events into an event buffer. And then we go through and we call handle event on each of those events. We clear the buffer. Draw game populates our buffer of drawables. It's just all the information about everything that we want to draw in this frame, and then render frame sends it to the GPU and draws it. So I think all the magic that we care about is going to live in here. And currently, this is, I think, our main file that's a mess. So, what is there to say? Draw menu. I think I just want to change the positioning and sizing of this stuff. So the way I've got it all set up at the minute, we did a bit of logic a little while back to basically mean it doesn't morph stuff as the screen changes size. I think we're going to want some stuff morphing as the screen changes size, right? So I want to move this start button to be in the middle of the screen, and I want the width of the box around it to stretch as you stretch the screen. I do think it's going to make sense eventually to pull all this out in some sort of like draw button. But while there's just one button, I think we should do it in place. So what is there to say? So this is currently just doing our background. It's doing something that we're going to have to do in a few places, right? We grab the screen extent. So maybe we do that at the top. We'll go ahead and say in here like screen dim. Extent to dim global context surface extent, and then when we're in Nya, now replace these with screen dim. That should have changed nothing. And then what we want to say in here is our button position is going to depend on its dimensions. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. They're going to depend on each other. I think string dimensions are going to affect string position. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I guess this is a downside to making all of our Our positions are all defined as this bottom left corner being 0, 0, and up is positive and right is positive. We could have made it the middle. I think that makes this logic maybe slightly simpler, but it seems a small price, and somehow making it the corner feels easy to reason about in my head. So we're going with that. So we draw the background. Then our button dimensions, I want to be the screen dimensions minus some margin, essentially. Button dimension, I want to be screen dim width minus, I want the margin to be 50, 100. Height can just be whatever it is. Button position. Going to be at screen dim dot width over 2. Put it middle, and then we're going to shift it over by button dim dot w over 2. Just do the same Y position or same. Oh no, we don't want to make that a position, not a dim. So screen dim dot h over 2 minus button dim dot h. We try that. And then the string dimensions, that can be fixed for now, but the string position needs to be I guess relative to button position. Or do I do it relative to the screen? So relative to the screen would be that same little turn. But it's going to be minus string dim. Similarly, you're going to depend on the height like that. That puts it in the middle. And it drags and it shrinks and it kind of looks reasonable. Oh, there's a bit of weirdness around the highlighting behavior while you're resizing, but I think that doesn't matter too much at this point. I do think that looks a bit silly though, so let's go ahead and make you a bit wider. There we go. That looks a bit better, doesn't it? A start button, which, ooh, interestingly, is broken. Where's my stuff? Ah, okay. That's going to be an issue for our clicking, isn't it? So maybe we are going to need some sort of like global entities list. Right, so if we go and have a look. Oh, where would it be? I think it's probably main. Handle game event. Overlaps start button. These numbers are just hard coded. I think options are we either have what global values that this can just reference, and then we do that for every button we add, or what? We make something like a buffer of entities that represent everything drawn on screen at the minute. So at the minute, while we got the one button, doing a single global thing doesn't sound too scary. The thing that worries me is that we're about to want to draw a bunch more stuff. So like our tile editor is going to be a mouse-driven interactive component. That's poorly timed. I have to get the door. Be 1 minute. Okay then, where were we? Yeah, this. Do we need this entities idea? Or do we just get away with making everything global? I think we can get away with making everything global for the menu. I think we're going to run into trouble doing that with the editing logic. I'll tell you what we'll do. I think let's make everything global for now. Commit, so we can get back to this state if we want to. Then we'll have a play with this entities idea. I'm not really sure. I say that like I've got a good idea in my head of what it would look like, but I don't really. So I guess to make this all global, we stick at the top. We would have something like start button dim equal to something, and start button Oz would be equal to something else. And then what would we do? Silly to do it in the draw call. So if we get rid of screen dim, you're still using screen dim. Not going to be using these anymore. And we're not going to be using that. We're going to be using start. No, because even then, actually, that is relative to that. This all feels very dodgy. Button hovered. Not. This all feels like a bad enough idea. I think I'm going to bail on it immediately. I don't think we've done anything yet that we care about losing. Right? I guess deleting those comments was deliberate, so let's get rid of that. I don't think we care about all of these changes. I think we can just discard these. And then we basically are at our same point. I'm going to waste a bit of time otherwise. I'm pretty confident that's a bad way to go. Can you please commit? No? There we go. And we've confused our LSPs. We hit that button. Right, what would this entity idea look like? So I'd still have game state, right? So when we go to our game.odin, like we're still going to have information in here that is like what state is the game in, right? What screen are we looking at? Are we even using this? Starts false. Seems like we're not using this. Am I losing it? Wait, let's just check. If I run this, it is working. Click you work. How is that working then? If it's not working through that, have I forgotten how my own program's working? So we go handle event. That handle event says inside of here. No, it just does it straight away. Which doesn't feel a bad way to do it. So actually that bit of state is also not used, is it? So let's go back to game, min game. Actually, that has nothing attached to it either. All starting to feel a bit silly, isn't it? So actually, when we're in the main menu, there might just be no game state. It is just the menu. Let's go ahead. Back out to Dired. Okay, so let's make an entity.odin. Start thinking about what that might look like. In it goes. Goes in package main. And we'll have something like entity, like a type. if I could type. Entity, which was going to be a struct with stuff on it. Where to do this then? Well, let's imagine. So we've got our button entity. You have an entity on you? Is this the way to do? So I think Odin doesn't support kind of like extending a base class. I'm imagining entity as being something like our base class. I guess an entity I'm going to define as something that is interactive and may occupy space in the screen. I think it means it makes sense for it to have a pos and a dim. Right? I need these, don't I? Yeah. It makes sense for a button entity to own, like, have a function pointer on it that says, like, what do I do when you click me? Okay, so let's say button entity has a string on it. And I'm imagining that we're going to have something up here like entity buffer size. Right, we do the same thing in a few places. We'll have entity buffer, entity buffer size entities, and we have entity count, which is initially 0. Right, this is kind of the same pattern we're doing for our drawables, but this one, am I overcomplicating this? Should I just be using drawables? I don't think so. So drawables is a lower level idea, right? It's about drawing shapes on the screen. So our button will involve a background quad and a string quad at a minimum. And actually that string quad will consist of multiple quads that get drawn, because the way that I've done my font is basically like a bunch of sprites. But it will be a single entity, because it's a single thing you interact with. If that entity has a position and a dimension, and then a button entity, is there a way you put like as in here? Am I making this up? I thought there's a thing to be like, I would like button entity to have all the fields the entity has. I think I've seen that somewhere. Is that a good idea? Odin language struct as? Is that the way to do it? No? Alternative to class extends. Not oop. It's not oop. Nope. Ugh. Why blanking on this? Look for everywhere that says as. That's a silly thing to do. How many are there? There's hundreds of them. I'm so sure there's a thing where you can say like struct has fields that are a thing. You use as to say like, actually I want it to like not have it as a separate field. I want it to drag all of that other thing's fields into its namespace, I guess. Maybe I'm just being daft though. Enumerations, structs, record type, struct literals, find listing a field struct directives, struct field tags. Struct fields can be tagged with a string literal to attach meta information. Oh, I didn't know that. Used with run type info. Usually this is used to provide transactional information about how struct fields are encoded to or decoded from another format. That's interesting. I didn't know that at all. Very neat. Tags also exist for bit fields. No as. I might give up on this if I don't find it quickly. Something we can always go back and do later. I remember seeing it somewhere and thinking it was neat. Is it using, not as, bring entities declared into this, using statements with structs? You have an entity, position, entity members can be brought into the procedure scope by using it. Say using entity can also be applied to subfields using entity.position. We can also apply it to the struct fields directly, making all the fields of position appear as if they are on entity itself. Using position. That's what I was trying to write. There. I think that's probably the neatest way to do it. So that means our buttons will have a .pos.dim on them. And a string. Okay, so let's not worry about the actual interaction yet. Let's go and have a look at how that would work. So I guess this would say, what exactly? I put it in the wrong place. So where is entity? There it is. When we initialize main menu, as we generate main menu entities, I guess we don't want something like clear entities. Proc. That just goes in here and says entity count. Right, if it's just entity count equals 0, I don't even need a function, do I? Right. What was I trying to think of? Generate main menu entities. Procedure that takes in no state, because we know we're on the main menu. I guess the first thing it does is it clears the backlog entities. So it's a completely destructive thing. It's not like a pause where it just hides stuff. We can actually like just drop all of them. And then, what do we say? Just want to draw our button. So we then go ahead and say, I think we are going to want like an entity push. Entity push, proc, will take. Can't just take entity, can it? Because it won't have room for the string. Unless we do something like entity has a data and a type on it or something. Data. Be a union. And then we'd have button entity data, which has the string on it. That seems an option. I don't know if it's a good option. Let's try that. So currently the only entity type is a button. And entity data is a union that can only be a button entity data, where button entity data is a string. When you want to push an entity, we will just do it. I'm not going to do any bounds checking. We're just going to blow up if something goes wrong. Entity push will just go entity buffer at entity buffer entity count equal to a entity, which just makes it a copy, which is that an issue? I don't think so. We'll make you a pointer to entity. Or do we just make you an entity? I think we make it just an entity. So we copy the value in, and then I guess this is our memory management. This is where the thing that we want to live for a while is going to actually live. We'll bump that number. Maybe that's good enough for now. And then that gives us a way to say, instead of hard coding in to say, and if my mouse overlaps that button, I can have something that says, if my mouse overlaps an entity, that is clickable. Right, so can I say in here, make a button entity? Be a procedure. This just takes in a string. Which again, I'm just going to assume ASCII encoding, we just take the bytes. Make the button entity. Oh, it's going to need a pos and a dim, isn't it? Pos, dim, dim, pos. It will be clickable. And so that will just say, do I need the word make? Can I just make it a function called button entity? Button entity is a function that returns entity that is pos, pos, dim, dim, clickable true. Type is button. No? Yeah, just button. And data is button entity data. With string is string. No? Because this doesn't return anything yet, so we come in here and go ahead and say you will return me an entity. Oh, it one-lines it, nice. Right, so then back in our game, I think. Oh, what's this doing? Is it trying to like some recovery thing? I think we should have somewhere broken. Oh no, we don't. Okay, should we go take out kind of everything? Alright, so overlaps button. It's gone. You, sir. To do. Handle clicks on any clickable entity. There is something to think about there. What happens if two entities are overlapped? We can give them a Z value. Alright, so currently that's to do nothing. Yes, do we still have the overlapping logic in here? Yeah. So that's in our draw logic. So you can see this is, I guess, the problem is currently our reasoning is very spread out. Draw Odin. So draw menu does all this. Take all this out. To do. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? We don't need a to do for that. So we're back to our non-interactive thing. We've undone a lot of good. We are getting the Information is coming in, we're just not drawing it. Um. How's this all going to look then? This init game is going to have to populate our I was going to say init game could populate the entities list, or we have a function that says populate entities for screen. Game populate entities. Let's go with that. It's a procedure that will take in a game. What will it do? It will say entity count 0. So it resets that. Switch on game screen. Base game. Panic. Case. Menu. We'll do entity push. Button entity at, I don't know, 10. Stir. I suppose you can just be a coded in string. No? Because you are meant to be a pos. You are meant to be a width and a height. And then this is that whole transmute business. I guess we'll do something in here like this. All feels very clunky. Sure, I'm doing this in a silly way, but it gets where we're going. So we've now pushed our entity into that global state. Kind of register it as like hey, we've got a thing that cares, and I guess maybe the thing to do here. Can I make your yeah, let's just hard code it for now. Do depend on stream width. Right. We are going to need that. So then back in main.odin, we can now have if event buffer count for event in all of these. Game handle event. Oh, it's before that, isn't it? Up here. Game populate entities for the initial state. Does that work? That works as long as it's then really static. And I guess from that point on, what we might have, maybe what we do is we say like this. So the first frame has nothing. Populate entities game. What does that do for us? Here, I need a wee. Can't think. Back in a minute. Okay. Back with a clear head. Has it helped? What was I saying here then? Should we just print our entities and check that looks like we expect? That seems a not crazy thing to do. Let's go ahead and print. Right, so every frame we get the same thing. It's just pushing that one thing over and over. So I guess now, draw game. May not even need a reference to game anymore. Alright, so if everything that should be drawable... Oh my god, what have I gone? Back to drawable. Sorry, I'm struggling to put this together in my head. So we'll now have something that looks a bit like draw entities, draw entity. Draw entities will just say for entity in entity buffer from the start to entity count. We'll draw entity, entity, and then down here we get what do we get? So entity has a type on it. So I guess we're going to be switching on entity type. Which currently has only one case. And so it's super simple. And we need to work out how to draw our button. Which will be a little bit like draw menu. Actually, is this function just not called anymore? Yeah, it's not, is it? It's filling a background, so I guess the background will have to be its own entity. It has some string. Yeah, so I guess from that then, we can calculate what we want our button string to be. So it makes sense at that point then to have like a draw button. This all gets a bit irritating, doesn't it? Is this the right way to do this? So then pass our entity into here. Say that draw button takes in the entity. But the thing it can do differently than everything else is it can say data is equal to entity.data as a button data. Right? Now means that we have data.string available to us. We've got a pos. We're going to need to work out our string position. So string pos would be equal to what do you say? String position will be equal to entity pos Is it useful or lazy to use this using thing again? Can you do that? No, because you're overwriting the... Okay, let's not do that. Entity.pos. I want to put a bit of space in, right? Maybe that's me being nixie. Let's just make it the same size for now. So string pos and string dims will just be the same as the button. It'll stretch to fill it. We need to then do a draw rect. We'll have some color that we're just going to hard code for now. It's going to take entity pos, entity dim. I think it might be time for us to start. Should we just put the Z on the entity as well? We can't put a Z on the entity as well. That's interesting because... Oh, that is interesting. Because the two bits need to sit at different depths, don't they? Okay, let's go ahead and say at the top here, we're going to have layers in enum. Let's say background is 0. And then I want UI. The UI sits right at the front. Say that's UI text sits right at the front, and maybe UI background sits just behind it. No? You're not allowed to do that? I guess not. So I can make them all consts. Let's try again. So let's go ahead and say background depth. Oh my god. Background Z 0. Say here UI text Z. I'm gonna make it not quite 1, so there's always a bit of room to put something else in. Go ahead and say text back. Let's do like that. Like background means like the actual literal like backdrop to everything. Nothing go behind background Z. Then when we do our draw, we can come in here and say that this is going to have one of those Z values. I've immediately forgot what I call it. UI text back. It's going to be marginally less lazy and call it background. Jump. Hey. You. So we'll draw our rect in there, and then we have a draw string function, I think, that we'll use. So we'll come down here and say draw string for data stir at entity position, entity dimension, and UI text. I don't know what I'm doing today. Okay, so let's rename that to Z, to depth. Let's rename that to have a Z on the end. Right, so there are Z constants. The text will sit in front of the background. Like so. Does this work without the brackets? It does, as long as it's simple like that. So then we can iterate over our entities and we can draw them. So I think that should get our button drawing sensibly. No. Filing shaders, leave instruction, core dumped. Oh, that wasn't helpful, was it? No message. That's interesting. Head. Back to Flectris. What do I want to say? Odin, build main, debug output, then gf2, main.bin. I thought I would already select the valid thing. Oh, wrong one. Path executable, main, bin, files, main. I guess let's go into main and stick a breakpoint in there somewhere. Alright. Why won't you run? Sir. It is running. Is this confusing? Doesn't look it, does it? And then if we just hit continue, where does it breakpoint? Get rid of that. Unreachable in font.odin. I think I know what's happened. Let's continue that. If I only got support for, yeah, I have, haven't I? Let's go back to wherever we just were. Wherever our draw entity thing is in here. Yeah, it's capitals there. Did I put it in game? Populate entities user must be uppercased. Nice. And it draws it tiny in the corner. Okay, let's go ahead and make that a bit bigger. Let's say 100. Should we do 200 by 100? So you can see it. There we go. And currently that doesn't morph or anything. So there's two things to say. One is we want it to depend on the screen width, and the other is we want to get mouse hovering working. So one of those that makes more sense to do first. Should we make its position depend on the screen size? Just for the sake of doing one first. So we're back in here. We want to say, actually, when we populate our game entities, that our entity.push, let's go ahead and say width is equal to what's it called? Something like extent to dim, didn't I? Extent to dim for our global surface extent will get us surface dimensions. So let's go ahead and say what that we want our button to be some fixed width. We want its position to be in the middle of the screen. We go and say button dim. It's going to be a dim. Width 200h 100. And user our button dim. You still need transmuting? I'm passing it in as a U8 now, yeah. And this can be surface dim. Surface pos dot x minus button dim dot width over 2. No? What's with you? Surface dim has no x, it's width. Cannot assign. Used to be transmuted. Can I actually say I want you to be defined as a string of U8s? No? Okay, let's transmute nice U8 again. Right. So what we have now, draw it in the middle. But you'll see as I drag this big, it does update. Should I be surprised? Dim dot height over 2. I kind of was surprised. I didn't think that would work. Thought we'd have to have something somewhere doing our updating. I mean, it is working. Because it gets called each frame. Yeah. Each time we go round, it's re-grabbing the value off the global value. Yeah, okay. Maybe I shouldn't be so surprised then. That's pretty fun. Right. So that was our resizing to fit the size of the screen. The thing that we're hoping is now easier is working out if the mouse is over the button. Is that right? So I guess our entities can have a hovered thing on them. Whereas button entity can at least. So a button entity takes a string and a hovered ball. And when we create one, we're going to go ahead and say hovered. No? So this hovered. No? Default to false. Not missed anything anywhere. Cool. Then what? When we create the entities, we've got access to the mouse position. So we're inside of entity currently. Be inside game. When we populate the entities, it says, depending on which screen I'm on, push a button entity. I guess you now need to take hovered. That should now fail to compile, because it needs to say in here, hovered. We'll go ahead and say that hovered will be equal to, again, it's that pod contains business, which I am going to go ahead and just hard code in quickly. What was it? You have to say gc cursor pos dot x is not less than the button dim button pos dot x, and it's also not going to be greater than button pos.x plus button dim.width. There is no button pos because button pos is just pos. No. That's our button pos. Right. Let's come back in here. It depends on button dim, so we come down underneath it. We'll have button pos is equal to pos x is surface dim w over 2 minus button dim w over 2. Y is surface dim height over 2 minus button dim height over 2. Then all of this line is button pos. And we can work out hovered now. So hovered will be equal to not global cursor pos dot x is less than button pos x, or global cursor pos x is greater than button pos dot x plus button dim dot width, or cursor pos dot y is less than button dot button pos dot y, or cursor pos. Promise I will write this out into a helper, but now I just want to see it work. Button dim.h. Bang that in, pass that through. And what do we want to then say when we're in draw entity? This function is now not used. Draw entity will pass that through. So draw button grabs this, and we can go ahead and say here that our color will be equal to red if it is hovered. So if data.hovered, else it's blue, and you sir are a color. So not working. Bugger. Why is that not working? I would have thought. I would have thought that would work. Background rectangle. Getting blue, so we're getting that it's never hovered. Back, we come back. Might just be a problem with this logic. Cursor pos, yada yada yada. Go ahead and do a format print line. Hovered with our cursor pos, our button dim, and our button pos. I'll do pos first. Button pos button dim. We've not got format in here yet. Let's go ahead and import core format. Alright, so you can see our numbers are all moving around all over the place. So x is equal to 220. That should totally work, shouldn't it? Right, so 220 is less than, what will that be? Oh, sorry, 28 something. Yeah, so it's well less than 220 plus width. The height be less than anywhere. There is somewhere it flashed true. Or am I just losing it? I thought I saw it flash true from up. It just off-centered. across the whole height. The hell? I'm so confused. But it is coming up true. It's just not affecting how it's drawing. Means then, if we come back and we look at our entities, so we're back in main, we're flushing events, populate entities. Can we format print line, entity buffer from start to entity count. And what are we seeing? It is passing through. Oh, I shouldn't have killed it, should I? We go ahead and say, get to the bottom of that. Applicable true, hovered false. So the entity we're writing has hovered set to false. So we're reading in the game, in main menu. Pull that back into line. Cursor position X is less than button position X, or cursor position X is greater than button position X plus button dimension width, or cursor position Y is less than button position Y, or cursor position Y is greater than button Y plus button dim H. And then we push that value on there. Entity push takes an entity. What are you taking in? You make button entity. Did I forget to put hovered? I've hard coded it. What a goonie. There we go. I know it works. Beautiful. Okay. Now, the question is that an improvement? I think it probably is an improvement, because adding a second button is now much easier, right? So if I was to say in here, I guess it would be, is it in drawable? Draw game screen is still just doing what it's doing. Actually, are you even called anywhere now? If not, I think I might just delete that as well. That is called though. Draw rect is called. Okay. Draw entity now knows how to draw more than one button. So, where am I populating this? Is it in game? Game populate entities says inside of this, if I'm on the main menu, I don't know, let's say I want the settings button as well. Oh, should we have an exit button? That's something we're going to want, isn't it? We're going to want to be able to click a button to close the game. Let's rename these to start button dim and start button pause. Go ahead and say start button hovered. Let me go ahead and do is hovered. Which will take a cursor, I guess just button pause, pause, button dim, dim, turn at bool. We don't need to pass in the cursor position because the cursor position is global. And it can just return this block. So I grab all of those like so, and start hovered can go, and user can just be called is hovered start button pause start button dim. Right, that still works. And we've simplified drawing a second one because we can come in here and we can just say keep them together. We want an exit string. Oh, bugger. Didn't mean to hit that. Let's pull that down as well. Exit button dim will be dim. That can be the same as the other one just for ease. I'll start, sorry, exit button pause. I can make start button pause dot x and y start button pause dot y minus 1.5 times start button dim dot h. Something like that. Then we can say entity push, second button entity with exit button pause, exit button dim. This transmute business, transmute to a slice u8 of exit string and is hovered. Exit button pause and exit button dim. And that should hopefully work. And now we have two buttons and they both have nice hover behavior. And that's, I think, significantly nicer than what we were doing before, just hard coding things in. Right. Righty. What are we doing after that then? Can I also say I want to put my game state back in? Go ahead and say something like, I don't know, count. Just string. We'll go ahead and say switch on. Is it daft to just ram this in quickly? It might be. Let's just leave that to do for now. Okay. So we've got drawing, we've got hovering, we've not got clicking yet. So clicking these currently does nothing. I think this feels like it's going in the right direction. So I'm going to put a quick checkpoint in here. Let me say untracked file, entity Odin. I do want all these changes. I think I do want. Let's just go ahead and say work in progress, experimenting with entity idea. All right, we reserve the right to bail on this still, but I think this is feeling easier to work with. How do we want to do our clicks? All right, so now what I would like to say, back inside of main.odin, we handle game event. Get mouse event equals that mouse event. And we need to handle clicks on any clickable entity that we hit. And we're not going to worry about them overlapping yet. So we just fire as if they were like transparent. Event will just go through everything, and if it's there, it gets clicked. Hmm. You just iterate over entities for entity in. Oops. Entity buffer. Up to entity count. If not entity clickable, continue. If not, it's hovered. Actually, this is probably more generic than I made it, isn't it? Maybe this lives on entity instead. Right, so you're going to actually just be called pos. You're actually going to just be called dim. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to move this to entity because I think it's more generic than this makes it sound. Entity is intended to kind of be our generic like logic object. So we're back in there. Go back to game Odin. No? Back in here. We're saying if not is hovered. Entity pod, entity dim. Then also continue. So if it's not clickable, we don't even check. If it is clickable, we check. And if it's not hovered, we move on. And then I guess the proof it's working, clicked entity. Cool. We can see in our entity, somewhere in here, it's button with data, and we can see different things. So let's assume they've got the right numbers. I think this means our entity needs to have its own callback, though. Right, so that means actually, so in here, we know we're now getting hold of the right thing. But the question now is, how do we say, so to do, do something. Or clicked entity. How do we do that? I'm blanking again. So I might take this as an opportunity to go grab a cup of tea. So, expect time to jump a little bit. And I'm back. Tea in hand. How do we make this thing clickable? I don't know. So one thought is we could put a function pointer on the entity and have it called. I've done a what's it in here? Yeah, we want that change in any case, don't we? So I guess one thing we can do have an on click. I actually haven't written a function pointer in Odin. How do you do function pointers? Okay. I've used a bunch of function pointers. Closures. Just telling you about how defer works. Okay, let's go and have a look at our types. back in. Oopsie daisy. Clicking the wrong thing. I think main has a bunch of these on it, right? We go back in here. GLFW set window size callback. The type with a function. Say type proxy blah 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 blah. That we can just pass in there. Does that help? Maybe. So we would like to have an on click. Oh, I guess it's just a void, is it? You just do that, and it's initially nil. But when I make a button entity, it takes a function, which is a void callback. And it passes it onto this. On click. No. So here on click. Fun. I'll go ahead and call it on click. Everything is not working with my LSP. But if we do that, we try to compile, it should break because we're missing stuff. No, it's seg faults. What? What? Am I losing it? If I take all that back out. What on earth did it seg fault? Take that back out. Not a mistake I've made somewhere else. And they work. They do nothing. Gracious. Yeah. But on click. So in here, just type a keyword. It's not a keyword. I have to check how you do that. Can I say void callback just for a thing that does not do a thing? Was it marks like hash type? This work for me? Now that should blow up. Seg faults. Seems interesting. Right, what happens if I say that button entity should take an on click that is a type void callback, and it should pass that through along with data. So on click should be equal to on click. We rerun the compiler. It's still seg faults. I thought what I should see is it should blow up saying this argument's not passed when you call button entity. If I go add the reference, does that fix the seg fault? So we're in here. What do you want to do? Go ahead and say start game callback. Start game on click is a proc that doesn't return anything, that just does format, print line, something. Start and exit. On click can be a proc. It says format, print line, exit. Can I pass those in? Does that fix it? So I'm assuming in here that if you're clickable, you've got an on click, so I can then say, is this thing that's hard, is it? Because I'm not even calling it. I'd understand a seg fault if I was trying to call the function, it was a nil. But like I'm not. What's it called? Is it called populate? Right, look in 61. Says I'm going to make a button entity, and that's going to have in it the start game on click. This one down here is going to have the exit on click. See if that compiles, and it still doesn't compile. Drats. And I can hear I'm being called, so I think I'm going to have to end there. Very confusing. Right, I'm going to stage that. Another work in progress, currently broken. Trying to get on click functions plumbed in, but seg faulting. And I'm going to have to run. So I have to decide a bit whether it's going to be an episode. It doesn't feel like enough to be an episode. Maybe I'll come back in a bit. This video will continue. I guess you'll know before I do. See you in a bit. Okay. I am back. We've not fixed this. And I'm still honestly pretty confused by it. So, yeah, we seg fault. I think the best move we've got is probably go run it in the debugger and see what actually breaks. Are we in the wrong place? Are in the wrong place. Can I go back to mine? Flectris. Peek behind the curtain, me moving video files around. Go and do a build. Or dumped. Excuse me? So it's blowing up on builds, not even on run. Well, that's interesting. Right, I'm in Flectris. Hey, I've not seen that before. Not sure what to make of that. Can I not refer to a constant value as a pointer? Is that the issue? That was the wrong thing, haven't I? I can jump to this thing. It's something like it needs to be not constant. Nope, still seg faults. Very strange. And my dehumidifier's just filled up. So I'll go empty that quickly. And that is resolved. Gosh, it's been a distracting all day, isn't it? Right. Back looking at this, that didn't fix it. Can't run it in debugger. What if I make it a C proc instead of a default Odin one? Maybe it's that there's no context to pass it or something. Still blows up. Oh, golly. Something weird like don't have them in there. Still seg faults. That's interesting. I don't understand why I'm not getting like a type error for it not being a known symbol. I'm getting a seg fault. Button entity. Is proc. This stuff returns an entity. Return entity. It's on click. On click. Void callback. Make a difference if I just inline it. You can do that in Odin. Yes, I thought you could. Like that. I have to say proc, sorry. Proc. I leave off the void. Format, print line. Start. Down here, have proc. Format, print line, exit. Maybe? Still seg faults. But nobody calls you. How can you blow up? So I'd really like to be able to have them named if I want them named. And it would make my life easier for them to not be C functions. So it means that we lose our context, and that's probably useful to us. Not gonna lie, I thought we just run that through the debugger and it would be easy. And yet, here we are. Can't understand. Segmentation fault. I mean, it is doing run main, it's not doing build. So let's go. Do a build main. Debug. It does core dump. I can't remember if I have core dump set up. I do. Core generated by this thing, terminated by that thing. But I mean, it won't get anything useful, right? Because, ooh, in check expression base. Oh, I can't remember GDB well enough to use it for this. Is there a way to use GF2? I go core dump control. List to receive, debugger. So debugger equals GF2 and see if that works. Core generated by this thing. Bunch of stuff. Guessing P must be like a process. Reading symbols. So it has all the symbols. We can see the stack. Check expression base. I just have no idea. Where actually is it in here? Do I have the source locally? So I go to Odin Linux nightly in mat code home. So we're in mat. See, can I type it in here? No. I do it in here. CD home mat code Odin. So I'm into here. I say jump to there. That's my working directory. Do the same thing. Back, code. Why am I struggling? Code. Odin. That's the binary. Don't know what actual file I'm blowing up in is the problem. Oh, yeah. There's one possibility is our void callback type thing is wrong. Should we just inline that and check? Need to find. I go grab it. Void callback. And delete. Should get type errors. And I'd like to say that you're instead going to be a function to void. Segfault. Just Odin build. Debug. Oops. I don't want to say that it's a bug in the Odin compiler without digging in, understanding what's happening a bit better. But it certainly looks like a bug in the Odin compiler. Do wonder if it is something to do with the fact that it's like it's a constant value. Something more like it takes a pointer to avoid callback. And we should break in a couple of places. Start game on click, exit on click. No, I'm just stumped. What if they aren't compile time values? What if I make them a function, like a factory function that builds them? We're into just trying random stuff now. So start game on click. Can you become a function that returns a void callback? Expect an operand. Okay, let's have a look. Somebody else must have hit this, right? So Odin. Function pointer. I mean, it must be getting set to nil. No? I guess not, because again, it's not like it's failing at runtime, it's failing in compile time. Quick search in here, function pointer. Assignment of polymorphic function. We're not doing a polymorphic function. Compiler crashes in type checker, edge case with function pointer. Hard to explain, so I'll just show a snippet below. Only crashes if the procedure foo is declared above the type definition of state. Put it below, it compiles and runs without issue. It's a weird interaction, mostly with bar. How it's used and define the state global variable, but also taking in state as a default parameter. Okay, so I have a foo procedure, which is a plain procedure, looks simple. If it's defined before state, then it blows up. Current behavior, reproducible full example, foo then state, make state down here. Tried sorting all global entities by their kind, so that entity type name entities get checked before that. Crash in standard atomic from check type. Returning false prevents the crash, but then produces a less than useful error message. Add a commit that references it. This doesn't sound exactly like mine, does it? Expression kind, AST, identifier, operand, entity, check, identifier. I mean, what's that saying? .gb is Ginger Bill? Assert that it's not a null pointer. That sounds like rather than crashing, it just will fail to build for some reason. Anything else useful? Type check panics on nil value for para pointer. LVM backend panic, compiler hangs, stack lost. Compiler hangs when declaring compile time constant function pointer argument of this thing. With function pointer argument plus return type combo. Another open bug. Error like this. I mean, that's a nicer error than we're getting. We're getting a segfault. I crash when global struct fields initialized with a proc call outside main. Failure information. Always crashing case. Observe a crash. After fiddling around, I found it's enough to just take a pointer to a compound literal and it'll crash. Like in that case. Same as us. Main proc. White print line GG. Do init return 42. Certainly bugger for a while to maybe fix it. I haven't got any smarter when it comes to LLVM. Code very dumb thing. Figure out what LLVM wants from me. Oh, this is also sad. Empty unit type. Odin has an empty unit value. This aggregate. You have to do with function pointers. Anything about function pointers or anything like that? I mean, part of what's confusing is I've got loads of places in main. Yeah, sorry, I'm distracted by my own code now. So if I take all that out, we put this back how it was. I've got a bunch of functions in main that look like this. Come on. Right, if we go to main.odin, all of these, so set window size callback. Is a proc that takes a window size proc, turns a window size proc, and it just passes it in. And then our window size callback. Because that thing mentioned there's some weird stuff around ordering. What happens if I move? What would it be? In here? What happens if I move those to main? Still fails. Oh, am I gonna have to go and do a bit of debugging in? Oops. Be back. Stick all my hunks back. Yeah, I have no idea. Kind of out of ideas. That just feels like it should be working. It does feel like the next step is to go debug a step through the Odin compiler, which sounds not very fun. Okay. Is there a way to work around it? The problem we were trying to fix is that I want to have a way to call a function. Right, so I take that off there. Interesting, that's still seg faults. Again, it doesn't like get error. Oops, sorry. Go jump twist called and say don't pass these in. Push. Let me go find my alt clicks. Just go delete everything. So we get back to something that does compile. Oh, I can't even compile now. I broke something else really silly. At the top of this, sack that off. Entity Odin on line 33. Ah, okay, so entity button. Do something like this. That will compile. If we like go back to our run, that'll run. So that's where we were up to before. Well then, I think I'm gonna have to go do a bit of reading, try to work out why on earth that's not working. But I'm very confused. Right, go make a point in the README. Short-term plan. It's in this one probably. Plan is to say, how do parse function pointers around without seg faulting the compiler. I say, this doesn't feel like I'm doing anything that complicated, so I'm pretty confident this is me doing something wrong, and then the Odin compiler not handling it the best way. I'm really not sure. So I think I'll go have a bit of a read and a bit of a play, and maybe I'll try and make a little minimal version of the same issue and see if I can understand it a bit better. Yeah, I think until we get to that, we're a bit stuck. So I guess we're going to call it there for this session. I'll catch you in the next one. Well, I worked out what I did wrong, and it's a slightly embarrassing one. So I maybe it's interesting to see. I bailed out to a little test program to just mess around and see if I can work it out. So I've made a simple little function here, do thing, which, like our other function, wants to take in a function pointer, so that I can pass in different functions to it. So I've got this one say hello that prints say hello, and I've got give me 5 that says print 5. And if we go ahead and we try to run that, it segfaults, like our other function does. Now, you want to see what the embarrassing mistake was? This is not the right syntax. So if we come in here and we say it's proc, suddenly all of the type checking works, and you get a really nice, helpful error message, and you can follow those error messages, and it just works. Yay! So I did have a look, and one thing to say is I am using a really old version of Odin. I say really old, like 6 months, 6-month old. I had a quick look at the change logs for the interim. There's been lots of changes. I guess they're very active at the minute. A lot of the change logs have been about improving error messages, so there's a good chance this is me being on an old version, and on the newer version it'll be fixed. So I will try and remember to go and check that. But what I think that means is our idea was fine. It was just me typing the wrong thing. You love it. So, if I remember right, I think I might have also deleted all of the bug code. Although it might all still be sat here waiting for me. Yeah, it looks okay. So let's go ahead and be like, I want these changes back, right? I want to delete all of this stuff, all of this stuff. This is me making a note to myself, because actually I found this ages and ages ago, and then I've been busy all day. So I've been sat waiting to get back to this. Is this useful to me? Nope, solved it. This avoid callback stuff I think should work. Probably should have checked that in my other thingy. But yeah, so now if we go ahead and we say in here, oops, we're in the wrong place. Oh no, what did I do? Close you. I want this set in here. Oops. Be in here. I want to do a run. I'm going to use my run script, and it's segfaults. I think if we go and grab, was it in entity? Not in entity. Was it in game? Oh no, maybe it was on entity. I think it's in the struct up here. I think you do that. Oh my god, and it works. And it doesn't print anything. Bugger, it doesn't work. Oh no! Oh, I thought it'd work. Okay. Well, it's not blowing up at least. Out of interest, can these type ones, can that say return void? No. It's not like it's just getting confused by the spacing. No, it actually is just, that's the syntax for a thing that returns nothing. Very cool. Which makes me think that doesn't even save enough to be worth the effort. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And jump to nya. Put that in there, because I think that all seems fine to me. Right. So now to work out why it's not actually doing what we thought it would be doing. Button entity takes in an on-click. It passes through the on-click. I thought I was going to find that I hadn't actually passed it through. Is nothing calling it? Is that going to be my problem? So if I go into, I guess, main.odin. Where'd I be looking? Where's our event loop? Our main loop. We're in here. We're handling game events. We have to do something for each clicked entity. And that something is now say I guess maybe we should assert that the function's not nil. So if entity dot on click is nil, continue. Might make that unreachable actually, so we blow up. At this point, we want to call on click. Nice. And I think the other thing to do is to say that it's not just mouse events, it's only for presses. Right, so let's go ahead and say if mouse Can I just return? What am I doing in here? Game handle event. Yeah, I think if I've got mouse event, I'm going to say in here if mouse event is it a type is not equal to press early return so that we don't get the release. Start and exit. Excellent. Right. For the love of God, please. Let's get that committed. And we've got a thing that actually works. Now, I think we still need to have a bit of a pause and decide if that's actually the direction we want to go in. That feels better than what we had before, right? That feels like it extends more easily. So working callbacks for on click on buttons. Yeah, let's push that up so I don't accidentally lose it somehow by being an idiot. Been a big idiot session today. I'm gonna plead sleep deprivation. I suspect anybody else who has small children could relate, but I've not been firing all cylinders today. Which is always fun. Ooh, I think I have a script for format. Do I not? Is there a way to be like shell command from the root of my project that I can run? And I didn't look like I picked up anything else. Cool. Let me just say format. Say at the bottom. Format 11 files, peak memory used. Nice one. My guy. I wonder if it just didn't save things? No, because I didn't do any Emacs. It's just done it on file. I don't know. Whatever. Right. So, that means we now have this whole entity thing. Don't know if it's a good thing that it's recreating them all every frame. So what's the alternative? The alternative would be that on switching screen, we replace, I guess, everything. And then on interim screens, we just mutate values as we need them. But it feels like that's going to involve a lot of searching. Right? Okay, I'm going to go with this for now. We have our two buttons. I think it would be nice, at the very least, what time is it? It's only 8. I've got a bit of time still. I think it would be nice to have exit actually exit. And then, the time allowing, we will look into maybe start game, get us back to where we were at the start of the stream with our 3, 2, 1, and then we'll try to add a bit of game UI. And I think we'll do that same 3, 2, 1 counter on pressing space or something. So, how do we want to do exiting? Think. I think the thing to do might be... Oh, do we just do a GLFW? Window should close. So I think that's how you do it, so that the... it's not clear. I think this thing gets triggered when we hit a close button, right? So if I come in here, when I click this X, I guess my windows are weird because I'm using a weird window manager, but this is an X. This will send a message to the operating system saying, I want to close this window, and GLFW picks that up and sets this window should close. Hence, this thing then breaks. I assume it still runs the code outside of it. It doesn't, like, crash out. I think it still comes in here. So we should expect to see our test fire. See? So I'd be inclined to say we just rely on that, and we will just set wherever I've set that callback. Was it an entity? Wasn't an entity. Was it in game? This is what I was saying earlier. I think in my README, I've got something to say. Like, I think I might need to do a bit of reorganizing. So I'm jumping around a lot and not finding stuff. See what the GLFW close window button would be. Set window close callback is not what we want. Well, window guide? Window guide's newer. Can I just search for close? Window closing. User attempts to close a thing. Doot. Sets a close flag. The window is, however, not actually destroyed. Current state of the flag is given to you by that. Can be set or cleared directly with this. So set window should close. To use it for the main loop condition, which is what we are doing. So that's very nice. If you want to be notified, you can set a callback. So that's useful if we're writing like a text editor or something. We want to be like, you've got unsaved changes. Are you sure you want to close? But not us. Not today. So let's go ahead and grab it. And we'll call set window should close. To take just a window and a value. I think that lives on my global context. Yeah. Set it's true. And that should be enough to make our close button work. I could type my shortcuts in. So start, just prints, exits. Oh, that's reassuring. That feels nice. Right. I think the next hurdle we're going to hit is start. I don't think start can just be a plain callback. Right? Because it needs to be able to modify the game state. So I think that this is going to have to take in a game or game state. Can we jump to see what that is? Screen and state. It's going to take in the game, I guess, because it needs to be able to update both. And when we click that, in fact, more than that, it needs to be a pointer so we can modify the value. And it's going to have to go game.screen will be updated to now be game, and game.state will be initial game state, which sets a count to 3. I think that means this is going to end up also wanting to be the same shape. I think that these... Otherwise, it's going to be painful to actually make it, you know, do the thing. I don't know if I'm making sense with this. So we jump into here. Alright, I think on click is going to have to be a proc that takes a pointer to game. Entity is going to have to be updated, so you're actually a proc with a pointer to game, which gets upset with me in here. Why? It has access to the game, so it can just be passed through. So, hey, I think that worked. So if we now go set a bit of game UI, which I guess will be a good test if our stuff is actually simpler, because it all lives in here now. Let's say game string will be a string. Go ahead and say, in case we've got that, can I go ahead and say game state is equal to game dot state game state. So if game state dot count is equal to 3. Oops, I've got formatting all over the place. There we go. So if game state dot count is equal to 3, game string will be 3, else if game state dot count is 2, then game string will be 2. I can't remember if this is exactly how I wrote it before, but game state dot count is 1. Then game string is 1, and else we'll just set it to, whoops. We set our string up that we want to draw, and then we're going to go ahead and say, I don't know. Button pos will be equal to some position, and button dim will be equal to some dimensions. I'm going to make it bigger than square, I guess. And then we're going to make it also sit in the middle of the screen. So I guess we can yoink what, these lines out of nya. Oops. Back in here, put them in there. Except surface dim is actually going to be called button dim. Start button dim is just dim. Okay. So this one is button dim, and this one just that. I'm hoping doing a few of these, it'll be obvious how to pull my button out neatly. It probably already is if we stop and think about it, but I don't know if you can pick up the vibe. I'm kind of done, if I'm honest. I'd quite like to see this just work. And then we'll have a bit of a pause to reevaluate if this entities thing is how we actually want to do this. So button dim, button pause. What do we actually then do? Entity push, button entity. So we're going to do something like that with all those values in it. Except start button, not a thing. User our game string. We do that. And we don't want start game on click. You're not a button. Okay. Not a button. Just a string. How are we going to do... How are we going to do keystroke handling then? Okay. Instead of doing all of this... Yes, I guess you're not actually an entity. But you are, because you're still a thing that gets drawn. What do we do for that then? String entity? Mm. I could just have it just decrement on click for now, and we'll work out. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have decrement on click, decrement count, decrement, decrement count on click, say proc. This one will also take in the game, and it will say game dot screen doesn't change, game dot state as a game state. Remember, right, there's a bit of buoy around this where you then can't just set the value on it, right? Oh, I can't remember how this works. So what type is blah if we do that? Can I make it a pointer to that? Then can I set blah.count minus equals 1? Does that work? Not hooked it in, I don't think. Where all these things get used. So I go jump back to nya. Zip back up. Find entity push. You, sir, are now the other one. It was decrement count on click. Did not work. Why did it not work? How do these take the game? They don't take the game. Entity push. Button entity with position, dimension, game string is hovered, decrement. Is this getting called? This is my guess. This is getting called, but it's just not actually updating the state. It is not getting called. Ugh, pain. My old friend, we're back. What we cocked up this time? Game.state equals state. Option to do something in here, then like count minus equals 1. That will complain at us. How do I say dereference that value? Ah! Why do I suck at this language so much? Right, this is a good check, because this confirms that we actually factually are not getting into that. The question then is why? We go and look at entity. We have our button entity thing. We're making another button entity. See, there's now 3 of them. There's our button entity. We're passing that value there in. We must be updating our list of entities because we're seeing the button change over when we do the thing. Hang on. Is it an entity? Go back to main dot Odin. I'm sorry, I'm sure this is actually not that hard. It's just my brain is giving out on me. I really want to see this just work. Yeah, we don't got any keyboard stuff yet. We get a mouse event. If mouse event dot type is not a press, then for each entity, if entity not clickable, can I say if we get to here, can I go format print line entity? I click start, see it dumps a whole bunch of stuff. Like a surprising amount of stuff. There's a button. T-pos 332. Y is something. That's interesting. The Y is so much lower. Oh no, okay, no, it's my mouse went fired when there are two entities on screen. So yeah, and then this one's hovered because that's the top button. That's the bottom button. That one fires. Does that mean we should not pick up the mouse event? We've not got a pace for game. I'm an idiot. Yep. That's an interesting point. Should mouse event is event.data. Why are we switching on game screen at this point? I guess inside of this, it's useful for us to know that we can get a game state. Okay. So for now, does that mean our keyboard handling's already set up though? It does. That's fun. And I can set it to say have a mouse handler as well, which I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of copy quickly from there. So mouse event, the event data dot mouse event type not equal to press, so we ignore the releases. The entity in entity buffer up to entity up to entity count. Don't want the format print line, so let's go doink and doink. And if not entity clickable, we skip it because that just makes sense. Right, because it's a mouse event, so who cares? If not is hovered. Pause entity dim. Continue. If entity dot on click is nil. Never get here. Something that's clickable should not have that be undefined. And then we just call entity on click. Entity dot on click with our game pointer. Start. That works. Beautiful. Then we are printing that in there so we can get rid of that. Start. Space works as well. Exit works. Oh my god, we've got interactions. Nice. I'm committing that before I have another cock up and lose it. I have to write it all out again. What, like the third time? Oh my god. Okay. What is there to say there then? So I think kind of finished exploring entity idea. Working mouse interactions. Needs tidying. I think you can tell it needs tidying because I keep having to flip between lots of different files to try and work out where a thing lives. And there's a bunch of repeated code, and it's not like, you know, it's not like it's code golfy type code. It is that this is literally the same as this. Some of these things might need pulling out into functions to make it just less insanely nested. I think we can do this more smartly. I think that these can probably do with some helpers for buttons. We're going to want to introduce a non-clickable thing. Let me stick that in here as well. Some tidying. I would also like add a non-clickable text entity. I think we're going to need that soon for score and for just stuff in the UI. Do you want to refactor, I guess, like the entity click handling to reduce copy pasting. I was going to say maybe we swap the order we're doing our switches in, but I don't know if that's even a good shout. So I'm going to leave that open-ended for future me to worry about. That I think we've already done. Do we want helper functions? I think we probably do. We want to help. Do we want to refactor our run script output a debug build binary and put all our outputs into a build directory? That sounds very sensible past me. Oh no, we crashed. Why did we crash? Oh, it was all going so well. What did I do? Did it always crash? Didn't always crash. Oh dear. Okay. I guess that goes in here too. Work out y count goes to 0 gives us a seg fault. Is it a seg fault? And it's an illegal instruction core dumped. Exited abnormally with this code. Okay, I think maybe we do this because then we can use that debug build binary to debug our seg fault. Or just bad exit. Ah, is it that something's unreachable? Am I hitting something that's unreachable? Do I have many unreachables? Whoops. It's totally whoops. What does that live in? Entity. Right, let me just search whoops. Yeah, that's the it's totally that. Ah, interesting. My click doesn't do the redirecting logic. I'm gonna go add that quickly because that's gonna confuse me again and again and again if I don't do it. But we avoided the debugger. Take that. I don't know, game people. Game people seem really big on debuggers. I think I need to get better at using my debugger. So we're in here. What does that say? Decrement the thing. And actually, can you just do the exact same thing as this? So if key.event type is press and it's a space, I would like for you. You've not got the entity though, have you? You're going to go ahead and just call that same function. It does end up with a bit of this like weird spreading, doesn't it? Okay. Didn't put it into the thing. Okay, so blah.count. Game state. Decrement the count, and then we go if count less than or equal to 0. Game dot screen is equal to main menu, and game state is the initial main menu state. Oopsie daisy. Go ahead and do that. Start, use spacebar. Cool. Do a mix. Click, space, click. Yeah. Okay. Now we're done. Hey, we've done this. Don't you love it? Get rid of that. I think another to do I'm gonna go pull a new updated version of Odin down in the interim and just see if some of these error messages have improved in the meantime. Decrement count. Cool. Fix crash. Okay. What time is it? 8:30. Do we feel like fanning around with this build script? What would be involved? Do you know what? I don't think I can. I just don't think I'm in the mood. I feel like this really kicked my butt today. I think it's going to be one of my less impressive videos. I don't think they're ever really that impressive, but there's been some trials through this one. Everything I've tried seems like it's just been harder than I expected. So I'm going to cut myself some slack and not go bash scripting. I don't think it's hard to do, but it sounds boring. I'll do it next time. There, something to look forward to. I'll tell you what though, I'm quite pleased with that. That feels like progress. I think we've gone from an exploration of how to do input to a pattern that will work for us for now and looks extensible enough to build what we want to build. So we take that and we can sort the rest of this nonsense out next time. So I hope you've enjoyed at least as much as I have. I feel like I didn't enjoy chunks of that, but we've landed in a good place. Type 2 fun. And I'll catch you next time.